part 2 of completing the square. Now, the ones I showed you earlier all had some things in common. There was no number in front. All you had to do was focus on the b and splitting that in half, and then adding that to your equation. Now we're going to complicate it a little bit, because sometimes there's issues with these numbers that we have to deal with when you solve these questions. So we're going to deal with those here. So these examples are going to be the ones that are a little bit more complicated, all right? But it's going to be very similar. Now here, this is not the C I want, so I'm going to move it over using inverse operations to the other side. So now I get this. 5x squared plus 20x equals 60. I'm leaving a little bit of space because I will put a C here eventually. But because of this number, that makes this a little bit harder. So what I do is I try to get rid of that number by dividing it. I'm going to divide out a. So if I divide this number so that it goes away, I'm dividing it by 5. The rule is you have to divide everything by 5, including the 60 on this side. So your problem now becomes x squared plus 4x equals 12. And now this is where you're going to complete your square now. So this is your new b now. You're going to take that, split it in half. You get 2. You're going to take that number and you're going to square it, and you get 4. So you are going to add 4 to this part of the equation, and you're going to add 4 to this part of the equation. So now you have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 16. All right. This can be written now as a perfect square, so we're going to write it in factored form. What was the number we used? 2. So x plus 2 squared equals 16. We're going to solve. We're going to do inverse operations and take the square root of both sides. We get x plus 2 equals the square root of 16 plus or minus 4. Okay, we got to get rid of that 2. Inverse operations, subtract 2 from both sides. Now, x equals negative 2 plus or minus 4. Now, because these are whole numbers, we can actually subtract or add them up. Let's start with adding. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. Negative 2 minus 4, negative 6. So these are your two answers. Another way to write them, if you choose to, is just to write this down. Write it over here. X equals negative 6 and 2. No parentheses, just both answers. And generally in order, from the smallest number to the bigger number. Negative 6 is smaller. And that's it. That's what you have to do. All right. Here, so it's not written in order, but if you notice, you have your A and your B together, and that's really all you need. The C can be on that side right now because I'm not even going to use that one. I'm going to come up with my own. But again, you can't have this number here. So we're going to divide it by 6, which means we divide everything by 6. So now we get x squared plus 2x. Now I'm going to leave my space, equals 8. Okay, next. This is our b. We're going to split that in half. You get 1. You're going to take 1. You're going to square it. You get 1. 1 times 1 is 1. So we are going to add 1 to both of these. Your new problem is x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 9. We're going to write this as a perfect square. What did you get when you split it in half? 1. So your factored form is that. We're going to solve for x by taking the square root. And we're going to get x plus 1 equals plus or minus 3. Okay, we're going to move the 1 with inverse operations to both sides. you're going to get x equals -1 plus or minus 3. My two answers, let me do the minus one first. -1 minus 3 is -4. -1 plus 3 is 2. Those are my answers. So those are the answers for x right here. Okay, next one. Okay, again, I don't want that number here. I'm going to move that number to the other side because that's not the c I'm going to use. It's not the c for the perfect square. So I move it over. So I have 2x squared plus 7x equals -6. Now, some people like to divide it first. This is when I like to divide it. I like to divide it once I move that. And I am dividing by a, which is the first number, which means I'm dividing everything by that term, the term for a, 2. So everything gets divided by 2. You get x squared plus 3.5x equals -3. Okay, 3.5, that's your b. We're going to split that in half. So half of 3.5 is 1.75. Okay, we're going to take 1.75 and we are going to square it. So let me use my calculator real fast. 1.7175 squared. And I get 3.06. Now, I'm actually rounding, so it's approximately. And once you get to decimals, guys, we're just going to stick with decimals. I'm not going to try to use all the numbers or use square roots. I'm just going to add this as my c. My c is 3.06. Okay. Now, do that. Your new problem becomes, right, x squared plus 3.5x plus 3.06 equals 0.06. Well, this is fun. Turn this into a perfect square or into a factored form with this number. X plus 1.75 squared equals 0.06. And now I'm just solving. I'm taking the square roots. And now, guys, when you're dealing with decimals, I'm not going to have you keep it in square roots. Just use a calculator. Just use a calculator. You get x plus 1.75. And now I need the square root of 0.6. So I need to turn my calculator sideways because I'm using my phone right now. Sorry, it's just not responsive. I get plus or minus 0.06, 0.24. Okay, I'm going to move 1.75. So I'm going to do minus 1.75, minus 1.75. I'm running out of space for this problem. I'm going to put it up here, guys. So x equals -1.75 plus or minus 0.24. So I'm going to get two answers. Okay, I'm going to do one where I minus. Let's see, 1.75 plus 0.24. I get, that's pretty close. It's like -1.99. Then if I do the other way, I get -1.51. And guys, because I rounded, I can't say it's equal. I'm going to say it's approximately. So my equal sign is more wavy. X is approximately these numbers. So something to know the difference about, in the past, when I showed you square root problems that look like this is equal. This answer is absolutely equal, even without the decimals, because this is more accurate, the square root of 66. Because I had to take the square root with a decimal, I had to round it, so it's not equal, it's now approximately. So just if you see that, it's rounding the answers, so it's not exact. So that does happen. Let's do one more. All right, this one's mixed around. I don't want that here, I want this here. So inverse operations. I'm moving this over here, and I'm moving this over here. That cancels out, that cancels out. You're going to be left with 2x squared minus 6x equals negative 1. Okay, that is fine. If the c's not there, it could be over there, that's fine. Okay, again, you cannot have that number in front. Divide everything by that number. So I have x squared minus 3x equals, I'll just turn this into decimal, negative 0.5. So I'm going to have decimals here. I'm going to use decimals. So feel free to do that. Once you get into decimals, just use your calculators, okay? Okay, to find the c value, I take my b, I split it in half, I get negative 1.5. Okay, I take that negative 1.5 and I square it. So I get negative 1.5 times negative 1.5, clear that, 1.5 squared, and I get 2.25. Okay, I'm going to add that to here. So let me move this up actually. Yeah, like that. So x squared minus 3x plus 2.25 equals negative 0.5 plus 2.25. Remember, this was my new c. This is taking over for the term I didn't have there. Okay. This I can write in my factored form. X minus 1.5 squared. That's the factored form of this expression. Here, this would become positive 1.75. Okay? And I gotta continue to solve it. I gotta continue to solve this problem. I'm gonna take the square root of both sides. So let me put that in my calculator. Taking the square root of 1.75. I'm gonna have to round it again. So again, I'm not gonna have an exact answer. I'm gonna have an approximate answer. So I'm gonna use a wavy approximate sign. I get 1.32. To solve for x, I have to move the minus 1.5. I'm going to add 1.5. Oh, and I forgot. When you take the square root, it's plus or minus. So, to finish this off, x equals 1.5 plus or minus 1.32. All right. So let me do the approximately sign. X approximately equals 0.18 is one answer. And the other answer, if I add that up, is 2.82. So X is approximately those answers. Okay, that's it.